It can't be said enough that a lot of data was used throughout this planning process. We looked at highway data that included trip distances, average daily traffic volumes, as well as delay on our existing freeway corridors. We used this data to help us to group together and understand the corridors that had similar travel characteristics. As you can see here in the map, we grouped the Interstate 5, the 15, and the 805 as our interregional corridors. These corridors typically have the longest travel along these corridors, as well as they account for approximately 2/3 of our freeways vehicles mile travel, or otherwise known as VMT, and delay. And they're also important corridors for our goods movement throughout the region, as well as goods movement that goes across our borders. We also looked at this data for urban corridors. For our urban corridors, these are typically used for people traveling between where they live and work, our suburban and urban communities. And you can see that they account for approximately 1/3 of the freeway's vehicles mile travel and delay. For our rural corridors, we looked at this data and we understand that the rural corridors are vital for our residents and our tribal nations that are in the eastern part of our county. And for these corridors, we know and see that they don't contribute a lot towards the vehicles mile travel, or VMT, and delay within the freeway in the region. That's actually a little less than 5%, but they do have similar trip distances and are used similarly to how our urban corridors are used. So this map shows the possibility of a complete managed lanes network that could operate very similar to what you may have experienced on the Interstate 15, whether you've traveled as a carpooler, you've used the Rapid that gets transit priority access, or you've paid using Fast Track as a single occupant vehicle traveling on those lanes. But this possibility of a type of managed lane system was designed to not only include what was previously proposed for managed lanes, but to provide a complete system that could be used for your entire trip, not just short trips on a single corridor. So what you see in the map here is a network of managed lanes throughout the region. Those major north-south corridors, which is Interstate 5, 15, and 805, those are the corridors that have the longest travel typically taken on them. They also experience the most delay during our peak hours. We proposed 4 managed lanes. And then we also proposed 4 managed lanes, which are shown in the lime green color, on State Route 78 as well as Interstate 8. And then the other urban corridors, we proposed a mix of 3 managed lanes with a center reversible lane and 2. Those are shown in the blue and the purple. And this is based upon the needs that we saw for those corridors, looking at the data that we used. And before we leave this slide, I also want to talk about the rural corridors and the importance of them, and they're shown in the darker green here on this map. So our rural corridors, we believe that technology could help us to manage traffic during peak hours of congestion, as well as helping us in emergency situations, coupled with site improvements such as shoulder widening that could allow for safe passing. We also see the role of technology in traffic management along those corridors, giving travelers real-time travel information and using technology to reassign lanes as it's needed to add capacity during events or those emergency situations. But beyond those technology investments, we envision that the rural corridors could have site-specific improvements. I said earlier, the widening of shoulders, realigning or straightening curves for safety, and providing intersection improvements. All of this towards improving safety, increasing access, and improving travel reliability and the movement of goods in our region. These images allow you to visualize what we could do with the 5 big moves. The image on your left is a typical 4-lane highway. It has a wide shoulder and it has transit running alongside it. And then the image on your right is when we start to apply some of those improvements of the 5 big moves and we implement a complete corridors highway. We advance transit leap, and then we add technology through the next operating system. We're able to repurpose those existing lanes and that shoulder space, and we can accommodate for 2 managed lanes, which are shown in green. We can enhance the transit services and improve with future transit services on those corridors. And really what we can start to see through the 5 big moves is how we're able to provide more capacity and more options along those corridors while also utilizing technology to improve and increase capacity. So in evaluating the opportunities for a Complete Corridors network, we looked at what capacity offers today. This is an example here of Interstate 5 South. We looked at our existing network of light rail as well as our freeway general purpose lanes and what that capacity offers, and then comparing that when we add the 5 big moves to our facilities. We did this analysis for not just only this example shown here, but for all of our corridors. But when we apply the Complete Corridors highway concept, we advance Transit Leap, and we implement the next operating system technology, you can really see that we have the ability to potentially increase capacity of up to 220% on this corridor, and as demand increases over time. And what we saw when we applied this analysis to this corridor and others was very similar, or sometimes even better capacity improvements. But what it really tells us is that when we implement the 5 big moves, we really have an opportunity to increase capacity on our existing freeways without necessarily expanding the physical footprint of them, but we also are able to give people more choices and options. And we can't talk about highways without talking about our local roads that run parallel and access them. In this image, you can envision what a complete corridor could look like at the local street level. You can see that we have an opportunity to really redesign our streets using existing infrastructure supported by technology, allowing us to really increase safety and increase capacity on our roads. Again, technology would play a large role for the local roads. We can use technology to help us manage the lanes, to prioritize transit, and you can also see in the color shown on the curbs that it would allow us to manage how pickup and drop-offs are done and improve that experience, as well as urban goods delivery. And through the implementation of the 5 big moves, we could accommodate for active transportation or other micromobility and provide them a dedicated and safe space.